What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Backliners podcast. It's Aggro, no Barracuda this week. He's off doing big boy job things, all that kind of good stuff. I know, who would dare to have a big boy job? Certainly not either of us. Instead, we've got Bobby joining the show here to talk about last weekend's, not this last weekend because that was Thanksgiving weekend, but the weekend before that, and the Road to Worlds qualifiers, some teams qualifying to the Smite World Championship. Bobby, thanks for hopping on and giving us a dude. I literally told Bobby right before this meeting, I was like, I'm just gonna try and not get in trouble and say anything that is gonna get posted on Reddit. And I'm gonna do it anyways.
Already?
Yeah, of course. I was gonna say it's gonna be nice to have a frontliner on the show, much like how the balance team needs to have a frontline main, which has been a really big talking point lately. And yeah, literally 30 seconds in, and I'm already like saying things.
Yep, that's on Reddit. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess because people will be like looking for some amount of meta discussion and all that kind of stuff. I will say this about all the discussion that's been happening. I have read legitimately every single Reddit thread for the past month that has had to do with mage solos, warriors being weak, whatever you want, whatever part of that discussion you want to hear. I have read every single one. And I go back and look because, there will be more comments and all that kind of stuff. So multiple times, I understand, and we understand on the balance team that this is a discussion in a meta, in a situation we find ourselves in that our players are not happy with. Patch notes are coming up. I'm not going to give too much away, but, we will be doing some things. We don't want to completely change, the entire landscape of the game right before the World Championship, because Bobby is a former player. That's something that, as you know, we try not to do.
Yep.
Oh, it's a bit quiet. Sorry, everyone. Let me turn it up a little bit. Oh, I see it is a bit quiet. But, so we don't want to have the players have to learn a massive new amount of things about how to play the game before the World Championship, but something clearly needs to be improved upon. So you can expect that we will. Oh, I see. It was the wrong volume knob, Bobby.
What?
That's what it was.
How dare you?
I had the wrong knob getting messed up. There we go. There will be some amount of change. I don't expect the entire game to, it's not a new season worth of change, but it is a significantly heavier balance pass than we would typically do before the World Championship, which is already probably spoiling a little bit too much. So just to say, I'm not going to comment a whole lot about the meta because I know it's kind of a sensitive topic right now, but I promise you, the words that are being said are being read by me, by other members of the balance team, all that kind of stuff. And it is something that we are taking into heavy consideration, when determining that. Was that good, Bobby? Do you think I'm going to get in trouble for that?
Yeah, that was the good part of it. The beginning part, maybe a little less, but
yeah, I mean, come on.
Well, for now.
Okay, I was gonna quadruple down, but
I'll
save that for later in the episode because as we all know, I get spicier as we go.
Yeah, it's like drinking, and when you start your podcast, except you don't even need alcohol. It's just what do
you think is in the cup, Bobby?
Yeah.
What do you think? Bear and I have talked about doing like a more casual podcast episode where we enjoy some beverages, but with like sponsors and that kind of stuff, you never know like what's like kosher.
Yeah.
But maybe we could get like a alcohol sponsor of some kind, and then it's appropriate. You know what I mean?
And then that's literally what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, we have to. So, maybe that's something we'll have to get on in the future. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the Smite that happened not too long ago. It was a very big tournament, of course, as these teams were getting prepared to qualify for the World Championship. And it started off with the Highland Ravens and the Jade Dragons. I thought this set was a really interesting one to start with here, Bobby, because these are, in my opinion, coming into this, there's 3 clear top teams, right? It's the Leviathans, the Ferrymen, and the Warriors. Those 3 are undisputed head and shoulders above the other teams in the league. The Jade Dragons and the Highland Ravens are kind of in that who's going to be number 4 range right now. And this set, I felt, pretty clearly showed that there is also a gap between the Dragons and the Ravens, with the Dragons winning at 3-1.
Yeah, I think it said a lot about both teams. I think both the Ravens had a really poor understanding of the meta. Like, their pryos were weird, and then kind of some of the ways they played the map were also a little weird. And the Dragons were confident with what they wanted to do, even if it wasn't the exact same as like the top 3 teams. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it worked. They looked good against them, and they looked. There's definitely things they can improve on, but they are already just like, every week you see them play, they just get better, it seems like.
Yeah.
And it's more so than any of the other teams, even like the top 3s.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why a team would make a roster change late in the year, is because it kind of reopens your ceiling a little bit, right? You're just not, you're making that progress a little bit more quickly again, and I think that's a good thing for a team.
I agree. I very much agree.
I will say, dude, I cannot get out of my own way, man. I did want, when I was watching this set, I wanted to talk about this chalk pick for Haddix, because even though it only won 1 out of the 3 games he played it, I thought it was a smart pick into the mage solos. It was Gaia first into Poseidon. Gaia most recently got a buff. One of the big things that is talked about with mage solos is they out-sustain you, or they poke you down too much. You can't get poked out with Stone of Gaia chalk. It's just like not possible. And then he was dealing, he was a relevant frontliner throughout the late game. Maybe not the most relevant, but that's always kind of chalk's issue anyways. But I did like that idea from Haddix, and thought it wasn't the primary reason why they were struggling.
Yeah, I think the chalk pick looked good. I thought the Gaia was good, especially because they were just able to counter pick kind of, and they didn't have to put like a ton of value into the chalk. A lot of it really comes down to how their duo lane performed in this set. Their duo lane played
stinky,
poor, very poor.
Yeah,
both of them. Both. Yes. I think Hurry played. He had a couple game or like 1 game. I think he played fine, but for the most part, the duo lane just got diffed so hard by Coast and by Mike.
Yep.
And Scream wasn't able to do much on the map because like every purple was invaded, every shield buff was confirmed by the Dragons, and Venenu was also not able to do too much. So, I mean, you have a stalemate solo lane, absolutely get you on duo lane, and then your mid lane is also just like a mage, so it's not too much you can really do. Right. It's hard to play games like that.
Yeah, I mean, Zap got his damage tripled in game 4. 34k for Coast, 11.7k for him. That
11?
11.7.
Who did he play?
He played On Her. That was the only game that Coast didn't play On Her in this set.
Oh, they picked it away.
Yeah, they picked it away. They top 2'd it. And Coast just responded with Hachiman right away and went 5-1-1, 33-9. Like
that reminds me. That set, when you see Coast play On Her, he is sitting on your tower line.
The whole game.
In that game, Coast was Hachiman, and he was still sitting on Zap's tower line.
Yeah, that's not a good spot to be. That's the thing.
Definitely not good.
So, I mean, Zap has just always been the type of player where I feel like you can just tell, oh, Zap's going to 1v9 for us today. Like, he's in the zone, like he's cooking. If you go, game 1, he's a veteran player. He can have a bad game and then bounce back and still be in it. When he drops 2 stinkers back to back, you're like, we are in trouble today. And that ended up being the case. And again, one of the upsides of Zap is that he can have one of those stinkers one day and turn around and look like the best ADC that's ever lived the next day. Spoiler alert, that
Yeah.
didn't happen this tournament, but
No, it
you
didn't.
have that benefit at the very least. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, there's obviously there's a podcast I did with Barracuda. That was a big roster change. It is not, and it's not, of course, fair to look at these results and be like, oh, it was the wrong move to make. But Zap did not play particularly well, and neither did Hurry. And even though I liked Haddix's chalk game, something that I noticed when I was going back over these stat lines, that I think this is gonna sound like a little bit troll, but Haddix had 2 deaths this set as a frontliner. You kind of need him to die, right?
Yeah, the games were weird. Like, they were really slow games, and they were just bleeding out in duo.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would take, like, 1 fight at fire, and they just lose. Or, like, under Phoenix, and just lose. Actually, it wasn't even at fire. They gave up, like, every fire. It was, like, under Phoenixes, they would defend 1 Phoenix, and then just lose.
Yeah, but isn't, like... I mean, this is an issue you never had to deal with, Bobby, where you didn't die enough in a game.
Yeah, no, they would tell me, please, for the
Please,
love that all
God.
is holy, stop dying.
Stop, yeah, exactly. But, like, I'm just saying, if my soul laner died 2 times across 4 games, I'd be a little like, go die. Like, that's your job sometimes. You can win a fight by dying, especially as a frontliner.
The entire set, he only died 2 times?
He died twice the whole set. The whole set. I can't see the stats for Warriors Ravens later on that tournament, but now I'm going to look because I'm curious on how many. But, I mean, I feel like that's something that, you know, you'll hear... Oops, sorry, you're going to hear some audio there for a sec. You know, Captain Twig is dying for a good reason, and when he's playing well, you know, all that kind of stuff. Let me see. Okay, game 1 loss. He died twice against the Warriors. He went 1 and 2. So, you know, we're getting there. Let's see. Game 2. Game 2, he does not die at all. 0-0-5. Game 3, he dies 4 times. So across what? 7 games, that's 8 deaths in 7 games.
Yeah.
That's not enough, right?
That is very low. But to be fair, Zapman was probably dying enough for him now.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Zap is definitely putting in the work there. 6 deaths game 3 for Zap.
Yeah, 7 deaths a game, I think, was Zap, not the entire 2 sets.
He averaged 7 deaths a game.
No, that's what I was.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, you're right. He outdied
him.
him. Or he outdied him. Yeah, I used to talk for a living, by the way. Yeah, he has a lot more deaths than Haddix overall. He died 6 times in game 1 alone.
Yeah, he died a lot more.
I just feel like, you know, there have been some soul laners that are more, you know, I don't want to say the like forbidden phrase for a player. Like, calling someone a KDA player is like a huge deal.
That hurts.
Right? That's a hurtful statement. But there have been soul laners in the past. I thought Aqua was really guilty of this for a couple years, like on that SSG team, where he would play his life too much.
Yeah.
Benji was never someone who was going to play his life.
Nope.
If he was on a team where he felt like he could win. He would go in, like, his score lines didn't always look great, but he was always out impacting the enemy soul laner. That's because
his damage,
as a frontline, you're supposed to die. Like, you're
his
supposed
damage as like a soul laner has got to be like top 5 average all time, because there's fights where yes, he dies, but he does 80% of 3 players' health, and then the jungler just comes and cleans it up. Scream's just there to like triple kill. But
yeah,
Benji's definitely like top 5 for damage done in games.
Oh, easily. I mean, I don't think there's a bigger gap between the best player ever in a role and the second best player ever in a role than Benji to the next best soul laner, who, for my money, would probably be Deathwalker. I think Paul is the best player ever. I think Yaman is closer to Paul than anyone is to Benji in solo. I think he stands head and shoulders above every other solo laner historically.
Yeah, trying to think of like the other roles, it's like it's pretty close to some of them.
Yeah, the other roles are actually kind of hard. Like I feel like it's hard to make an argument against adapting in the jungle, but I think there are a lot of great junglers historically. Like honestly, if Panatom wins this year, he's gonna be right there.
Yep.
You know, you look at how many great junglers there have been. Anninster ruled the league until Kenneth took over.
You got to talk about Sino too, surely, right?
Yeah, Sino's definitely in that conversation. I think it kind of has to be Kenneth.
It has to be him at 1, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. And then ADC I think is probably the hardest. Well, no, jungle's kind of hard. I mean, I don't know why we're just getting derailed into this, but it's the typical podcast content. I think like it's really hard to not say Zap because he's the 3-time, right?
Yep.
But I think I would still put Panda Cat as the top ADC. But again, you look at Barra's career and how long he was a power player in the position. You look at Zap. You look at, you know, there's so many really, really good ADCs that have like kind of dominated for a little bit. Yarkor is in this like weird zone because you consider him more like ADC or solo, but he's just clearly one of the blanket best players that we've ever had.
He's probably the most impactful player of all time, considering he MVP Levi's, changes roles, goes over to the Kings, and then
wins again.
For my money, he was the second best player on that Kings team. It was,
yeah.
I think him and Genetics were the top 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
and yeah.
You look at like, yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think Cyclone is
That's
like
the one I was.
Yeah, Cyclone has had that same level of impact across multiple teams. Cyclone's definitely in the greatest ADC of all time conversation for sure.
He played solo too for a bit, right?
Yeah, he dominated in solo season 2. He was like, it was kind of because at first when Epsilon started winning, this is from a very NA biased perspective. Epsilon kind of came out of nowhere from our perspective because and it did really in Europe too, because that was a team that Raffer kind of just like tossed together, and it wasn't until like they had a dominant spring and a dominant summer that everyone was like, oh yo, this team is like actually legit. Before that, it was really Cyclone, Weekend, like those Envy guys like Snipe, like they were the ones who were kind of the team to beat that year, before everyone realized like how insane that Epsilon roster kind of was. And Cyclone, I thought, was pretty clearly considered the best player in the world at that point.
Yeah, I remember.
But then Baskin got called up on, I think it was Denial at the time. And everyone was like, holy crap, this guy's obviously nuts. Like that was a really fun time.
I don't even remember Baskin playing on a team that wasn't that Barracuda team.
Yeah, he played on, I want to say, I mean, I could probably look it up.
You know this type of SPL more than I do, because this was like as I started playing Smite.
Right. Yeah, what year did you start playing?
Season 2 I started playing. Early season 2 I started playing, yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what SPL was until like season 3 or something.
I've still got it, baby. Yeah, he came up on Denial in spring. Yeah, he started in May. And then he joined COG for like a month. And then he got picked up by Cloud9 like very quickly after that. But yeah, he came up in May and he just like immediately started dominating from May into the summer, and then joined COG for a little bit, then joined Cloud9 after they kicked Omega was kind of his thing. But yeah, Baskin, who were we? Maybe it was like at Thanksgiving I had some people over and we were talking about who the best player who hasn't won a ring is, and I think Wooney is number 1 on that list by, I don't think it's even close. Like I don't think anyone else is even in the conversation for me. Like Deathwalker is maybe in it, but
I mean, now that Twig and Variety have theirs, Baskin is probably number 1, and I don't think it's particularly close. Maybe Deathwalker, but I feel like Deathwalker played less than Baskin, right?
He did. And what makes the difference for me, because this conversation happened, Deathwalker had those chances in finals. Like, Wooney hasn't even played in a final yet.
What?
And yeah, he hasn't. I don't think he's made it past semis. Well, he's clearly not made it past semis. I'm not even sure how many times he's made it to semis. I don't think they made it to semis on SOAR. This LG team, like he was on Space Station and then he went to E United and they got upset in quarters by Trifecta, the Paul, Sam, Neil Trifecta team.
Oh. And then he quit the year after, right?
Then
for a bit.
Then he quit for no. Then he went to Splite. Yeah, he quit. Played SCC, then came back for a little bit to play with Splice in the middle of the year, but then went back to SCC. And then he came back and played on E United. And he made semis last year. No, Bolts lost. Oh, they did make semis last year, didn't they? Because they played against Hex Mambo.
Oh yeah, they beat Mambo round 1.
Yeah. Wow, that was the semis. Wow.
I can't even remember him playing on the Bolts.
Yeah, he was good last year. He was good. It wasn't what he's been this year, where I think he's been the best solo by a significant margin for the vast majority of the year. Sots had his moments. But
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Season 2 semis on Cloud9. Yes, that's right, Neon. Thank you. Yeah, that set against Epsilon was crazy.
I think part of it is he is a better player this year, but I swear Sino just makes everybody around him look better because of how much he does not care how bad he looks.
Yep. That you want to talk about the opposite of a KDA player? No one cares about. He actually cares about getting a negative KDA.
Bro, that's why I'm telling you. That's why the Obey team was so bad. It's because I didn't care about my KD. He didn't care about his KD. Wolfie didn't care about his KD. Ducky didn't care about his KD. Wow, he cared about his KD, but too much. We just had nothing.
Yeah, no, it's true. You need a mix of selfish and unselfish players, and we talked about that on the podcast after Barra got dropped. In that, I think Barra is one of the ADCs who doesn't care very much about his KD. And Zap is the one who has never cared about his KD.
Yep.
And that's why I thought that move was more lateral than anything else.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think the Ravens' problem has been, is that Ven is a player who doesn't care about his KD, and neither is Zap. And I think you really do need one backliner who cares.
Yep. You do.
Having two is bad. And one is not better than the other. They both are difficult in their own way. They both have their strengths and weaknesses for like what they bring to a team. But I really think the best teams always have a mix of KDA players in their backline in particular. I'd be hard pressed to find a team with KDA frontliners who finds a lot of success. I think your frontliners need to be willing to die basically all the time. I truly think that either your mid or your ADC can be the only KDA player on your team. I think it's bad to have a KDA jungler. I think it's bad to have a KDA frontline basically all the time.
I think with frontline, it's like you need to have one of your frontliners, like jungle solo support, that is willing to get every fight started. Mm-hmm. And that's you only need one. Obviously, two is going to be better. But I think you kind of need like a hyper carry frontliner sometimes too. Like you need to have a jungler that can sometimes carry. You need to have a solo that can sometimes carry.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think who was the last support that really carried? The one that comes to mind was, do you remember watching like Rival with Kalas or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, Genetics definitely was last year, right?
Well,
for the Kings.
When I say like carry, like he would pick Ares and they would literally hold him farm. He'd be ahead or sometimes ahead of Wolfie and sometimes like even. And then I don't remember who their jungler's name was.
Ice.
Ice would always be below him.
Yep.
But like it worked for that team. That team just did that really well.
Yeah, that's true. Dardez, when he was on Elevate, they would do that for him. They would like hold farm for him and let him play more of a carry style. To be clear, I think you can carry with a non-KDA mentality. Like you can be willing to die and carry games. It's just got to come from your ability to be willing to die. And that doesn't mean that your KDAs are always going to be bad. You can have your 4-1-4 losses as a non-KDA player, but if you're doing a lot of 1-2 death games in losses, and then that becomes a trend.
Yeah. I
still remember, man, our set against that Eager team with Miff, the one that retired me that he talks about all the time. I finished that game 0-0-0. We got like 2 kills.
Miff was bullying you out of the jungle, huh?
No, they got like 4 kills. They just had to release Fafnir, and they got every objective as it spawned. Never fought us a single time. It was the most cowardly thing I've ever seen in my life. But I still remember as soon as we like ended that game, I was like, I should have died somewhere. Like, surely there was a moment where I played my life where I should have gotten in there a little bit more and baited them into a worse fight, or gotten them to use more so that Keegs could pop off because he was our ADC at the time. Like, ending a game with 0 deaths as a backliner is more acceptable, but in my opinion, if you died and had 0 deaths, it's almost certainly indicative that you didn't push that envelope quite enough, rather than you played perfectly and the rest of your team let you down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
You ever have 0 deaths in a loss, Bobby? Ever in your life, you think?
I don't think I've ever had 0 deaths, period.
Probably not. We got to get Max in here to do it. Dude, Max was on the show like last time, like 2 weeks ago. He was popping out some sick stats for me and Barry. I'm sure looking at your account would be very funny.
Yeah, it'd probably be hilarious.
Yeah, I'm sure we would always love it. Yeah, Mike's season 7 with Rival was a good one.
Yeah, that team was around Mike a lot.
Yeah, they played.
That was Assassins, like Fenrir.
Yep, Fenrir Herc.
Yeah, he was really good in that meta.
All that kind of stuff. Anyways, Leviathans Kings was the next game that Thursday. Wow, that was a long sidetrack. Not much to say here.
This game was worse than the first game.
Yeah, I mean,
this set.
The right side of the map for the Kings continues to be an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to put it. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I've said it a lot, like just talking about the league. Twig and his wife just had their kid not too long ago. I thought about what it would be like to try and compete, like play Smite professionally. My environment was significantly the SCL, the Smite Console League, was way less competitive, way less stressful, like way less rigorous.
Yeah, it was really only my team, and nobody else was very good.
Your team was literally a twinkle in my eye at that point, Bobby. You didn't even exist. I cannot, those first few months, and even still, my kid is only a few months old. Trying to, I still feel like my brain doesn't function the way it used to. The idea of trying to compete in that new parent zone is unfathomable to me. And in my personal, just having gone through it recently, Twig cannot be blamed for any amount of play that he does at all, because it's insane to me that he even is showing up and looking human. Because I did not feel human at that stage, for sure. Now, I don't know what Variety's deal is. I don't have that for him. We know he's obviously a better player than what he's been doing recently. But it doesn't change the fact, even with that, I'm not going to put a whole lot of blame at Captain Twig's feet. But it doesn't change the fact that right side of the map is a complete disaster for the Kings. And I don't know if I have a whole lot of confidence that it's going to get fixed in time for Worlds.
Yeah, I think this meta is not a Kings meta at all.
No, this is the worst meta possible for the Kings, probably.
I think in a different meta, in a different year, I think this Kings could be a top 4 team, but
easily.
Variety on mages, especially with just his style. This guy's always been someone that loves to soak up pressure, get ganked, live how he shouldn't be able to, stay up on farm. And now it's just not that.
No.
He's just dying.
No, it's been rough.
And then it's more pressure onto Twig because he's solo frontline a lot of the times, or
Yep.
solo engage, I guess, because Quig plays a little bit more backline style.
Yep.
And yeah, it is tough for that entire team and the entire meta. But I think Quig has actually played pretty solid this year. Even in their losses, I think he looked pretty good.
Yeah. I don't think I haven't had a problem with Quig's play. I don't think it's been particularly inspiring, but I think it's really hard to be the only frontliner who isn't massively behind.
Yeah.
And that's really what's been happening in the vast majority of their games. This poor backline, bro. Big Man and Yark, like, playing.
Yeah.
It does not matter who you are. When your front line is getting crushed, you just cannot play damage classes. Like, it just doesn't. The way MOBAs play, like, if they can just insta-kill your front line or ignore your front line, they are going to crush you, and they are getting crushed, which is tough. So we'll have to wait and see for the Kings. Okay, then it was Ferrymen and Dragons. This set, if I remember correctly, weren't the Dragons, like, massively... They inted game 4, right? This is the game they tried to end and couldn't?
They inted 2 games. They had a lead in 2 of them, and they couldn't secure a Titan kill in either of them. Game 1 and Game 4.
That's right. Game 1 and Game 4. And that continues to be a little bit of a trend for the Dragons. But the Ferrymen also are kind of in this trend of they get behind in a lot of games.
Yeah, they don't care.
And they win. And so why should they care? But I kind of care for them, if I'm a Ferryman fan, that I just never, there's something I would talk about when I was casting all the time. I don't want to be at the mercy of someone else making a mistake or giving us something to capitalize on. Even if it isn't them making an outright mistake. But if we need any sort of window, because what just happens if you run into the season, like season 6 SK, where, I mean, it's not like they were ahead in any amount of their games, but it's just a team that is just all of a sudden playing out of their minds. And what if they just don't make mistakes or enough mistakes for you to capitalize on? I just never want to be the one having to answer questions. I want to be the one posing them as a pro team. Like, what Ferrymen, spoiler, obviously do great. They get the number 1 seed. Overall, though, it does open up some questions for me about this team going into the World Championship, because they just weren't good enough early game, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, they play and they draft like the first 20 minutes doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
They will give up stuff if they don't think they have any potential to fight, or if they think they have a fight, they'll rotate it to be like, instead of like a 2v2 where they're strong, it's a 3v2 where they're even stronger. And then they draft like, I mean, their game 1 draft, Yamoja, Chernobog, Vulcan, Morgan, Naja. Like, other than Naja, everything is looking to farm there.
Yep.
And like, it's every single game where they're just picking losing lanes, Ganesh, Hachiman. Like, they are not trying to win anything. But it has been a long time since I've seen somebody team fight like these guys do.
They're so good at it.
If it goes late, their macro play in the middle of a fight, their ability to like, even like micromanage some things. Sino dies in a fight, and Sino will be like giving his team exactly what they need to do. Yo, Paul, you got to hit this guy. Yo, Baskin, you got to back. And it's like, bro, what the like, you're doing more while you're dead than you are while you're engaging. But I mean, it's not like he's doing that little while he's engaging, but
sure.
It's crazy how good they team fight and how just good their macro is late game.
So you are not, are you, overall, this is a question that I will ask later as well for each team. Did your stock in the Ferrymen for winning worlds, did it go up, down, or stay the same from this tournament?
I think it stayed the same. I had them as my favorite going into this, and then nothing was like sticking out to me. This team is better than I thought. It's mostly just they are still probably my favorite, but it is barely, like you said, top 3, and it's them at 1, but it's like 1A.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I still think my stock went ever so slightly down just because I'm worried. Like, if the Jade Dragons, you know how it is. When you play on stage, you can either fall back and do, choke a little bit, or you see players and teams really rise to the occasion and hit levels of play that we've never seen them hit before. Stu at Worlds last year is a really good example of this, where he played his best Smite he's ever played up through the semifinals, then had a little bit of a rough final set, but really rose up. If a team like the Jade Dragons, who were ahead in 3 out of these 4 games, elevate their play and just don't lose those late game scenarios, that one fight that the Ferrymen win in order to turn it around, it only takes, 1 set to knock you out.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about the Ferrymen for that reason, but well, I mean, like you said, if every team plays to their absolute maximum potential, I still think the Ferrymen have the highest ceiling. But I think stylistically they don't necessarily, if we're talking about it being the Leviathans, Ferrymen, and Warriors, Leviathans and Ferrymen play very similar games. Neither of those teams look very good early most of the time, right? Leviathans maybe a little bit more consistent early game than the Ferrymen are, but make a lot of comeback wins happen. The Warriors are by far the most early game slanted, even with genetics, out of any of these teams. And so if you're the Warriors and you're looking at, okay, we know we're probably going to have to beat the Leviathans and the Ferrymen, or one or the other, they should feel pretty good about their chances, because they've kind of got a rock, paper, scissors matchup, I feel like. Like, if they play perfectly, they'll win based on the way that they're playing the meta right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to start talking about them yet.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, because they played the Leviathans in the next set. This set was a banger.
That set was incredible. And I think starting with is the Warriors are the biggest wild card team coming into this tournament. If you tell me they got quarterfinals, like, knocked out, okay. I mean, if any of the top 3 teams were to happen to, I think it's this team. But this team also has a potential to just go into this world and just stomp everyone they play against and just manhandle them. And I think that's what's scary about them, as either the Levi's or the Ferrymen. Like, the Levi's Ferrymen, you're basically just playing for 3 team fight wins or 5 team fight wins, whatever, however many you need. And this Warriors team just could have you down 10k gold at 12 minutes or something like that. So they have inconsistency problems, so I think is rather obvious. They have also I think their macro late game could also use a little bit of work.
Agreed.
And that's kind of surprising, saying with Genetics team, but it's mostly like they're just not on like the same page a lot of the times, or it's just like poor overall team play. But I mean, they've got a little bit of time to grow in that team fight aspect, but I mean, you're right. If these games, if they match up against those teams, play against either one of them, and if they can end the game, like, they'll be scary. Yeah,
they really are. I think their play style just gives them a big advantage over the other 2 teams that are in the top echelon. But they're also the only team out of those 3 that I think will beat themselves some percentage of the time. I think the Ferrymen will literally never beat themselves. I think the Leviathans beat themselves occasionally, but not very often. The Warriors definitely a higher percentage chance than most top teams we've seen in the history of the league for them to just get a little wacky and make a series of bad decisions that will lose in the game. The thing that stood out to me about this set, Bobby, and I don't remember if you were you casting the set, or were you on the desk, or were you vibing?
I was one of them. I don't remember which one I was.
Okay. I feel like the thing about the Leviathans, just kind of moving on to them, that would concern me if I'm a Leviathans fan, I do not like their picks and bans. I feel like a lot of they're really bad, right?
Yes.
What do you think is their biggest picks and bans problem? Like, if you were coaching the Leviathans, what would you be addressing there?
It's like they'll ban stuff that is like, you can kind of see it, but it feels like I don't want to say they lose P's and B's, but they could be winning a lot of their P's and B's harder with some things that they could be doing. And I think they weirdly prioritize some gods that other teams don't prioritize, like, at all.
Yep.
And it kind of just puts them in this weird spot where they then have like I don't want to say like off meta, but like a not top tier pick. And maybe it's like they just really like counter picking and they want to just have like a lock in the top 2 or whatever. But it's like that second and third pick on either side is always just throwing me for a loop.
Yeah, I generally agree. I mean, I felt like in their set against the Ferrymen, game 5, number 1 seed, kind of on the line. These picks and bans, I remember just thinking like, what happened? In the middle here, these picks and bans. It was Ferryman on order side. I actually didn't remember to look up if it was order or chaos favored in this tournament. I think that's something that is usually pretty interesting to me, but I can't remember looking that up this time around. It went Poseidon, Rat, Hunbats bans from Ferryman on order side, which all generally makes sense. Thoth, Athena, Naja bans from the Leviathans. Thoth, I mean, look, he looked, he had a couple one-shots, like all that kind of stuff. I still feel like that's a really exploitable pick that I'm surprised the Leviathans ban that, even if it's doing kind of well. Like, I don't know, that just feels like such an exploitable pick to me. And because you're giving up Chernobog to Cyclone, and I feel like that is like what type of character enables the Ferryman's playstyle of, oh, you messed up your macro late, we win the game now. It's Cyclone on Chernobog. Like, I feel like it is inexcusable to give him that god at this point, in my opinion.
And even after the nerfs, he's still doing things on that character, which just helps that team. It allows them to play even safer late game and puts like all the pressure onto you with what he does. Like, he'll just head left, just split push, make you start a fight when the game is even. Mm-hmm. And if you don't start the fight, you lose Phoenix. If you do start the fight, a lot of the times you lose the fight. Yep. But at best, like, you go even or something like that. But like this entire time, he's just farming on the Chernobog. And something that he does really well that I can't like think back to if another player really does it that well. But if he's not at a fight, a lot of the times he won't show on waves and he'll just like farm in the jungle. So he's just like slowly catching up and you just don't know where he is. Yep. He's not walking on wards. So like that entire time it could be, oh, we take a 5v5 here. He could just be here and then they just have like the potential to use the Chernobog to like chase down or to disengage. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they use Chernobog and I think they use Athena, like those globals, better than any other team does. And I don't think it's particularly close.
Yep, I definitely agree with you. Leviathans took Raijin, Morgan Le Fay. That on paper it's like, okay, sick. We took the mage that we took the 2 best mages in solo that are available because Opwash is banned, right? Oh wait, no, actually Opwash is still open. Who has looked like the best solo mage. If it's not Poseidon, I feel like Poseidon and Opwash have kind of risen to the top of that of that pool. Sure, you deny them their choice of either one, but you give them, I think, the best one available out of those, which is Opwash. And then Sino picks Nem because he's Sino. And then, always the cardinal sin, in my opinion, I've been very vocal about this. Camazot's jungle has got to go, man. Like, I cannot deal with this anymore, bro. No CC junglers should be outlawed. If I were playing in a competitive team and, I'm playing with El Leon still, and he's like, yeah, give me Camazot's here, I'm like, sick. Thanks for the help, bro. Like, I'm not getting anything here. I'm a Camazot's jungle hater. I think the character is fine, but I just feel like he's not what I want my jungler to be doing, which is pace setting, starting fights, setting up for my damage dealers, because he doesn't really do any of that very well.
Yeah, okay. I generally agree, but there is one scenario where I do think the cam is fine, and it was counterpicked. I think it was adapting that actually did it first. He counterpicked it into the Mammon, where that is a really easy, because if she ever dashes into you, you can just ult and then bring her to your team, or you can just, jump away.
Definitely a good
jumps out.
Yep.
That is like the one time where I was, because I even said going into the game, I was like, I don't like this Kama pick. And then like you watch it play out, the Mammon can do nothing in that 1v1.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, Kama's fine there.
Yep. If your game plan is to get to late and isolate your jungler 1v1, or I guess if it's being played in mid, if you're trying to isolate the Mammon in the 1v1 and you're picking solely to win your 1v1, then I agree. It is very good. In this game, I thought, it is not this game, I think in the majority of games, like when I see first pick Camazot's jungle, I'm like, oh, what a, like,
Yeah.
I hate it. I'm a hater of it. I'm not saying it's terrible, but in my opinion, it isn't great. Yeah, and then they pick Uller Nox because they're so CC light on the back end of this draft, but the Ferrymen still just go Ganesh Vulcan, no CC immunity, Nemesis no CC immunity, Opwash no CC immunity, and there just isn't enough CC on the Leviathans that's easily confirmable that you feel like they're going to get a chance to win this game. Although Leviathans did get really far ahead in this game 5, for how much I'm saying I didn't like their draft. They got really far ahead in this game, but they just can't do Fire Giant with this draft ever.
Yep.
Because who DPSs? Like, Uller DPS is terrible on objectives. Morgan Le Fay, Raijin, neither one are good secure or burn.
Poseidon there, though.
Yep, Poseidon, Vulcan, Cuckoo. These are the type
that's a
secure mages, baby. They're coming back.
That's a good point about Cuckoo, because there was Dardes had a few great Cuckoo games.
Yep.
He was played a couple other times, but Dardes really stuck out to me as like, all right, maybe Cuckoo's something into a lot of these, because a lot of these comps currently are very, very CC light.
Yep.
Like, because it's like Raijin, Morgan, and solo. I mean, even Poseidon, pretty CC light, Opwash. And then a lot of the junglers played right now. As you said, I mean, Cam has played. Rat and Thor somewhat locked in. But for the most part, a lot of these comps, and the Guardians or the supports are also usually backline Guardians, so you're not threatened by them either.
Yeah.
Cuckoo could be like a sneak pick at Worlds, too.
I think he looked really, really good. I think Dardes looked really fantastic in this overall tournament. I thought he looked like the best Mammon player by a pretty wide margin, in my opinion.
Yep.
He looked like he had the best mastery of that character so far, which was really fun for me to see.
Did you watch Panaton play it?
I did. Wasn't... I expected a little more from Panny, because I'm so high on Panny. He was just getting warmed up. That's all there is to it. He was just getting warmed up.
His last game on it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But he had a few games on it, and it didn't look
He's getting warm.
very good.
Yeah. All I'm saying is, if you believe Mammon is strong at Worlds, I'm not giving it to Panatom on the world stage, because
absolutely
that
not.
dude is just such a beast. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like I love to talk about Smite competitive. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. I love talking about how, I don't know about you. You obviously have played so much more recently than me, but trying to crack like what I would do or what my team to do in a meta is like the most fun part of it. The Ferrymen, I really feel like, as good as the Warriors have looked at times, as good as the Leviathans have looked, I feel like the Ferrymen are the only ones who are getting it, because they're the only ones who are picking Nem, who I think is fantastic in this meta, because if everyone's playing solo mages who build mostly damage, that means most teams are playing one character that can start fights for you. One. And if you just pick to kill that one character, how do they fight you? Like, that's what this comp is. Leviathans have one fight starter, and it is a Nox root, it's a silence root from Nox. That is such a low percentage way to start fights. It's so telegraphed. It's so easy to kill her. And then once Nox is dead, how do Leviathans ever play? Like, I don't know. I feel like if I were coaching a team right now, that would be the thing is, if they pick solo frontline against us, why don't we just pick Nem, Sobek, Ganesh, these gods that are really good at isolating fight starters and killing them, and then we just take a 5-on-4 where, as long as we don't get poked, we can engage, we're good. I think it's significantly stronger than what I'm seeing a lot of other teams do.
Yeah, no, I think the Nem looks good. And I think on top of there only being one engage tool, it's also like very little CC, and she wins a lot of the 1v1s against the current junglers. Like, there's not many 1v1 junglers. I don't know exactly how the 1v1 with Mammon works. I think it's pretty skill based, which is
always interesting to see. Pre-beads the stun or the knock up to keep your shield up, And if you can just hold, you just have to hold shield until you're low, because
Yeah.
if you use it early, then she's gonna kill you for sure. But if you use it when you're low, I think you should win.
Yeah, absorb like a lot of the burst to get the little heal.
Right.
But there's also like just not a ton of CC in the game. She wins like every 1v1 currently, except maybe like a late game ADC, because they're all building Deathbringer crit options. So yeah, I mean, I think the Nem looks good. I think especially with her buffs on top of it, teams should be trying her at the very least. Yes, it might not work for every team, because I think, I mean, I say it like that, but then Sino plays it, and they're very hard reliant on Sino. So
immediately dropped Sophie for Calvin as soon as he came in. Sorry, I was listening, Bobby, but
no, you're good.
Then I was also handed the little.
You had better things to do. I get it.
And immediately dropped Sophie, dude. This onesie, he's wearing this is really good podcast content as always. He's wearing a little Winnie the Pooh onesie, and it's like the softest thing known to man, and it's very cute. Cal, you're doing a great job. He loves screens, so he is never going to do anything except like stare at all of them.
Yeah, he's opening his eyes wide.
Yeah, those are fun, right? The screens. We just got to get. Andinster's been trying to get me on to put him on an aim trainer. So
already.
Yeah. Well, he's thinking.
You think he's ready?
I don't know. Here, put the mouse in your hand. All right, I've got a Smite Xbox controller right here. Go ahead and grab that for me, Cal. Go ahead. He is not grabbing it. Oh, we're grabbing it, and we're in business.
But that's the first step.
First step complete. Good job, kid. You got it. You're already better than Bobby with the controller. There you go.
Wait, how many worlds did you have with the controller wins?
Well, you see, what had happened was
Myth joined the league.
Well, no, we ran into Envy Season 2 in the open bracket because I was convinced to let Chach play Sobek at MLG Columbus, which we should have done. Okay, bye, kid. Good night. Thanks, dear. Sorry for Sophie. R.I.P. Dude, he loves that little giraffe. Parents out there will know Sophie the giraffe. She's OP. Okay, wait, before I forget, because I'm starting to get hungry, and that's making me think of today's sponsor for the episode. It's Factor Meals. Why didn't I send this to you, Bobby? I should have just made you read this whole thing. But I'm going to have to do it this time instead. Unlucky for us. Bobby, did you know that with the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for some wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days? Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in, Bobby?
It actually does.
Yeah. Well, what if I told you as well that they could level you up with gourmet plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time? A full record there, Bobbert. You can treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Any of those tickling your fancy?
I've always wanted to try truffle butter.
Well, I've got the place for you to do it. But you're going to have to wait because I've still got more to read about it. You can also round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 45 plus add-ons, including breakfast items like their delicious apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. Or, for an easy wellness boost, try a refreshing beverage like cold-pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. I mean, come on. What could be better than all that? That's sounding absolutely excellent. So head to factormeals.com/backliners50 and use code backliners50 to get 50% off. That's code backliners50 at factormeals.com/backliners50 to get 50% off. I'm not trolling, Bobby. If you haven't tried Factor, they sent us some a while ago. They are actually like really good.
Well, I was actually not trolling when I said that would actually be good, because
they're just like little microwavable things.
Yeah.
2 minutes. And like most of the microwavable things, like have you ever gotten those like at the gym or something like that? Like they've got like the little microwave things. Okay. Most of the time they aren't that good, right? Like the rice is like dry, and the meat, like the chicken, it doesn't taste very good. And they were like, oh, we're sending you Factor, and I was like, okay, it'll probably be fine, just like those are. I actually like looked forward to eating them. They were really good. Barra had all of his in one night. He liked them so much. That's a true story.
Was there bread in all of them?
No, that's how you know.
Really?
Liked
That's
him.
how good it was.
Yeah, that's how good. No bread, and they had vegan options for him. He was actually loving it. So no troll trifactor. It is legitimately very good, and it's one of the best ways to support the show. So big shout out to them. Okay, we kind of talked about the main matchups. Of course, the Ferryman and Leviathans. We talked about their setup. Neon brought up a very good point that I want to get to before we kind of wrap on talking about each team's chances. In that, getting first seed in this is actually a bigger deal than in most years, because if we are of the belief that it's a 3-headed race at the top, if you get the number 1 seed, theoretically, they will only have to play one of the Warriors or Leviathans to win Worlds. That they should both be on the other side of the bracket. That being said, what you hear players in sports, esports, all that kind of stuff say, you gotta, if you're gonna win Worlds, championship, whatever, it shouldn't matter what your bracket is. It's just, you gotta be able to beat every single team there. But if we're being honest, it's kind of nice to have an easier bracket on the way there. So I think it is actually pretty important for the Ferrymen to have won this tournament.
Yeah, I agree. I think that has a lot to do with it. I think maybe in previous years where it wasn't so close at the top 3, like where maybe the number 1 team is super dominant, but the second and third are not there.
Mm-hmm.
But like playing against like we already talked about it, playing against the Warriors early, like there are some it might not be the Warriors. Maybe a team upsets the Warriors too, but say it is the Warriors that makes it through. That is a very scary place to be in, especially when you compare it to the opposite side with the Ferrymen, where Dragons look great. That's like the 4 seed as of now. Dragons look great, but they aren't in that top 3. And it's a good like warm up to get you to that final set, and then kind of puts you in like the correct headspace. And yeah, first seed I think for this tournament has been probably biggest in any tournament for Smite ever.
Yeah, at least in the recent few years, I would definitely agree with that. Would you take any singular team? I guess you said Ferryman as number 1. How confident would you be taking them against the field? Because I think in the majority of years, you could take one team against the field and feel fairly confident across the years of Smite. How confident would you be in the Ferryman if the Ferrymen are that team for you, them versus the field?
Not very confident.
Yeah,
I would give it like 25% Ferryman, 30% Ferryman, 7% field.
Yeah, I think that's probably about fair. Would you take... I feel very confident in saying I truly would be shocked if any team that was not the Warriors, Ferrymen, Leviathans, or Dragons wins. I would be floored. I think I would be incredibly confident taking them against the field. If you remove the Dragons from that equation, I still would take the top 3 versus the field, though that feels like not really the field at that point. But yeah, I feel like in my opinion, there are 4 teams with a real legitimate chance at winning. It's not to say, I didn't think SK had a legitimate chance season 6 and they won. So it's not impossible, but I would be surprised for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think top 3, pretty confident, like nearly guarantee one of them. But if you add in the Dragons, I think it's got to be one of them. Yeah. And then
you never know. You never know.
I also think of the SWC and SOC, like just hearing players talk about them, they seem to be on like a really middling road right now. But again, I mean, Mambo last year, I mean, they were a good team, but nobody really expected them to beat many SPL teams, let alone, I think they beat 2.
I feel like a lot of people thought, I'm sorry, at the beginning of that. Yes, I agree with that. And then people were really high on them going into Worlds. That I thought that they were considered the favorites over the Bolts in the quarterfinals, which you can go back and check the podcasts from this time last year, or I guess after that tournament last year. That team was never in a million years going to beat the Bolts, just stylistically, and because the Bolts were significantly better than every other team had made it. I don't know enough about the overall SCC SOC landscape right now to make a call on if a team can, make a run. I will say this: the the SPL teams that are going to be playing, which is everyone but that top 4, I think are all very beatable.
Agreed.
I think the bottom of the SPL right now is extremely vulnerable. I think the Kings are very beatable. I think the Ravens are beatable. I think the Hounds are beatable. I think the Glads are beatable. So if we got 2 SEC teams, it wouldn't surprise me that much. It really wouldn't. I think those teams then against the top 4 have a next to 0 chance. But overall, I think it's not impossible for those teams to make a run. And that's coming up soon, right? Like 2 weeks from now is the first part of that tournament is SEC?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is the second week of December.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I think it is 2 weeks.
I'll have to get in there and preview some teams. That'll be fun.
Do you think, like, if I told you the top 4 teams, one of them didn't make it, how surprised would you be? Like to semis?
To semis?
So, like, either the Dragons,
I would be very surprised.
Ferryman, Levi's, Warriors, one of them didn't make it.
I would be more surprised that one of those 4 didn't make it than if the Dragons beat the Ferrymen in the semis. That would surprise me less than if one of those top 4 didn't make it.
So you think the Dragons are closer to the Ferrymen than the Dragons are closer to the rest of the field?
No, because, I mean, the Dragons 3-2'd the Kings. Like, and that set was kind of close. But that was, like, some really ugly Smite. I think it's the Dragons are definitely closer to the bottom end, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be that surprised. I would be a little surprised. I don't know. I can talk myself into thinking that any of the top 3 gets upset based on playstyle, because the Warriors could beat themselves, as we've talked about. The Ferrymen and Levi's could just get rolled early, and the Levi's could do it through a bad draft. Like, those things are feasible, but I just find them to be unlikely. I just wouldn't be that surprised if the Dragons made it to finals, because that team has looked like they have the potential to be the most. If the top 3 were a top 4, right? If we thought the Dragons were on the same level as the top 3, they would be the most well-rounded team out of the 4 by a country mile, in my opinion. They would have the most capability to win early and still win and come back and win late, or drag an even game out and win late. They've shown the most versatility, and they've shown the most meta pushing. Like the Maman mid, obviously the Leviathans were playing it as well.
Yep.
Who knows who came up with that strategy first, like in scrims. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to the Dragons because we just happened to see them first. But I think they're the team that has the potential to become the most well-rounded out of those 4. So that's why I'm higher on them than their results probably indicate that I should be.
Yeah, I also think the Dragons kind of have a good setup for this entire tournament, because they'll play the best team. Well, in theory, they'll play the best team other than like the final 3 in the first round. And then they play, I think, a team that they match up like good with, like them and the Levi's. I think they have like an equal shot. Mm-hmm. I think this team has little to no chance against the Warriors. Something about how the Warriors play into them, it just is like big bro, lil bro type of stuff.
Yeah.
But when they play the Ferrymen and they play the Levi's, they look like a top 4 team. When they play the Warriors, they look like a 6th seed team.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that is a very bad matchup for them. Yeah, I don't know. The more I've talked about it, the more I think the top 3 are ordered a little bit in my mind. And I do think it is Ferryman, then Warriors, then Levi's. Even though the Levi's just beat the Warriors, my gut is just telling me that that's the order that those top 3 should be in. But like I said, we're splitting hairs at the top end there, so it could go either way. That was an
incredible set too.
Yeah, it really was.
Levi's Warriors set.
It really was. But man, really, this is shaping up to be a sick world championship.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be really good. I can't wait. It's gonna be great. All right, real quick before we get to the random question of the week, let's go through each team and say if your stock rose, stay the same, or dropped after the tournament. And they can't all stay the same, Bobby. You know, we gotta get some hot takes here. We already talked about the Ferrymen. You had them staying the same in stock. I had them dropping slightly. Let's talk about the number 2 seed in the Leviathans. Did your stock in them raise, stay the same, or drop?
I think it dropped a little bit. Not much, but probably same amount as yours dropped with the Ferrymen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that they also dropped slightly to me. Warriors, I think, stayed about the same, in my opinion. They had some great games. They had some really bad games. They did about what I expected.
I think the Warriors raised a little bit in my mind. I think they easily could have taken that set over the Levi's, and then they stomped the Dragons and they stomped the Ravens.
Yep. Yeah, they crushed
I think they
both
actually.
those teams.
Yeah, I think they move up a little bit for me.
Sure, I think that's fair. Dragons, you know, they crushed the Ravens. Well, they 3-1 the Ravens, but they kind of crushed them in that set. They get 3-1 by the Ferrymen. They 3-2 the Kings, who dropped significantly, in my opinion. Just getting ahead of myself a little bit. And then they get crushed by the Warriors. And I still have them moving up a little bit, just because I thought they should have won that set against the Ferrymen with how they were playing.
Yeah, I
need to go back and watch that King set. I have to watch it. I only watched part of that King set. I think I only caught game 5.
Not good.
I gotta watch it so that I can get a dose of reality, I think, about this Dragons team.
It was bad from the Dragons more than it was good for the Kings. Like it was not a good Dragon set. And then I think that they just kind of carried like over the momentum from like that bad day over into the next set and made them look even worse against the Warriors. Mm-hmm. But I think they have to come down a little bit for me, even though they did play very close to the Ferrymen. The other 2 sets were just so bad.
Yeah, that's fair, because I watched all of Thursday and Friday and only caught parts of Saturday and Sunday. So that's probably why I'm coming away higher on them, because those were certainly the 2 sets where they probably looked the worst. So just in all honesty, my lens is pretty tinted in that way, because I didn't get to watch all of their games Saturday, Sunday, but did Thursday, Friday, and I thought they looked better in those 2 than I expected them to. Kings, yeah, man. I mean, Kings, it was like, oh, they could turn it up, you know, like they've got all this talent, and you know they just won Worlds, only won roster change, all this kind of stuff. They are out of the conversation for me now. They dropped. They had the biggest movement, and it was the wrong way.
Yeah, I think they definitely moved, and it was not in the positive direction for me. Also, they just maybe if I see them in like another meta in another year, I can say something positive about it, but heading into this Worlds, there is no way I can see this team. Like, this team might be my most likely upset over even the other 3 SPL teams that aren't like the top 3 or top 4. That's how
they need to qualify. Like, I'm not even
that's
sure
what
they're
I'm worried about.
Yeah, like I'm not even sure they're going to.
Yeah, so I've definitely moved down a lot.
The Ravens, I mean, to be honest, I didn't expect a great performance from them. They still looked worse than I thought they would. So I guess that I have to move them down, but it isn't by that much. I haven't felt like the Ravens are on the cusp of breaking into that top end all phase. I don't think that they are now. Yeah, I'm pretty low on the Ravens currently.
See, I was a little high on them coming into the tournament because they had played the Levi's the last week of the season for implications, and it went 5, and they looked great. Like, this was a really good set. And so I actually thought they were going to beat the Dragons in that first round, and their P's and B's were bad. Their team play was bad. They did not look good. They got molly-whopped by the Warriors. They have to come down for me. Probably a good amount more than you because I had kind of decent expectations for them.
Sure. I think that makes sense. All right, that gets us set up nicely for the World Championship, which is not that far away, which is really crazy. All right, let's go to our random question of the week. Of course, we grab these from our community Discord. Patreon.com/backliners is the place to go if you want to get involved there, which I think you should. Hiru wants to know, what is one activity, errand, or task that you thought as a kid would be quick and easy to do, but realize it takes an incredulous amount of time as an adult? Oh, I've got one right off the rip here. Cooking.
I got one.
It's, how does cooking and cleaning take this long? Like,
yeah,
it's criminal, right?
Yeah, that is. It's because like the cooking, you have to like wait for the food to get warm, and then you have to clean the dishes after.
Yeah.
And then you have to eat the food too, and it's like a 2-hour long activity, and it's not it's like a chore.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal. I can't stand it. I think it should be illegal, personally. And that's why factormeals.com/backliners, 50 is the place to go. Just kidding, but not really. Hold on one second. Sorry, I gotta reply to this. Sorry, he was just asking a question about when he had eaten. Okay, next question is...
Wait, what don't I get to answer?
Oh, sorry. No, I thought that was your answer. I thought you were disagreeing with me.
No.
Oh, no. Yeah, please.
Mine is laundry. I thought you just toss it into the washer. The washer would do everything. You dry it. Take you 2 minutes to fold the laundry. Bro, yeah, it takes like not that long to put it in the washer, but folding clothes takes a stupid amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Also, like, mowing the lawn... Like, it doesn't take that long, but if you actually want your lawn to look, like, good, like, that takes a lot of time.
Okay, okay, slight tangent, but it is about mowing the lawn.
Please do.
Well, I was young. There's always a kid that's, like, the designated, lawnmower person.
Yep.
That was me. Uh-huh. And we lived on 10 acres of land.
Oh, my God.
And I had to mow all of it. So I would literally spend... Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
But I would spend 5 hours... in one day just to mow the entire lawn, and I would just be sitting there. I'd have to like take breaks, stand up, get some blood back into my legs. That was terrible.
Yeah, that is absolutely insane. 10 acres is a lot. I had never mowed a lawn until we bought a house because I'm allergic to grass. This is like a real thing. I'm allergic to grass. Like if I lay down in the grass for like 5 minutes, I'll have hives all over me. And freshly mowed grass like really upsets my allergies, but I've just got to do it, now that we own a house. And so I literally never done it and was like, I was like, what do I do? Like I was a turbo noob. It is kind of enjoyable though, in a way.
It can be.
If you're not on 10 acres. Yeah. Like I was thinking one time I was like mowing. I had waited way too long to mow because it's me. And it's really satisfying to like mow, a portion and then you turn around and you see the difference right away. If working out was like that, like if you could like lift some weights and then you instantly see your muscle be bigger, everyone, like I would be at the gym every day. Like it would be the best, Unfortunately it isn't that way.
Doesn't work like that.
I think it should though. I
should.
I think it should. Before we keep going, I did want to let you know that we also have a second sponsor for this week, which I had forgotten to read about earlier. That is my mistake, especially because it's one of our favorites. It's this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is obviously getting to be the holiday time of year, which is a lot of fun, but also can be very, very stressful. And if you haven't, made the leap to trying to find a therapist to talk to, now is a great time to do it. And one of the hardest parts about starting going to therapy is how do you find a therapist? What if you don't like them? All that kind of stuff. And that's why we are big fans of BetterHelp, because they take away those most difficult parts and make it a lot easier. So all you have to do is just go ahead and fill out a short questionnaire. They help you find a therapist, and you can change at any time for no additional cost, which is absolutely huge. So keep going until you find that therapist that works for you, because when you find it, it'll be such a big help. Can't express enough how important it's been for me. Barris talked about it a lot as well. So really, really big fans of finding a way to talk to someone who is unbiased and an expert in how your brain works, which is very, very cool. So yeah, again, it's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/backliners today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/backliners. Big shout outs to them for sponsoring the show. Okay, our next random question of the week from Neon. How many chickens do you think it would take to kill you?
Huh. I've never thought about this one.
It's tough. We've talked a lot about, like, you know, Mifflin versus how many gorillas.
One baby gorilla could take Mifflin and rip him in half.
It is not close, by the way. He would have no... How many Mifflins would it take to kill one adult gorilla? It's a number well over 100.
Dude, even Miff versus like a chimp.
I'm taking the chimp.
He would get slapped
and Miff
around
can
by
fight,
him.
for the record. He is not soft. He is a man who has been in many fights. He will tell you about them. It's not an insult. It's that a gorilla is incredibly strong.
Dude, they have like
you can't
8
hurt
times
it.
the strength of a human.
Yeah, you can't. He couldn't hurt it. That's the main. This was a long-standing bit, as you know, because you've been on the podcast 1,000 times now, Bobby, for years and years and years.
This is my first one.
Don't do that. That was our question that we would ask every guest: is could one gorilla beat 100 Mifflins in a fight?
100 Mifflins.
Yeah, I'm taking the gorilla every time.
It would be it depends. Has Miff, been working out?
No, it's Mifflin tomorrow.
Oh, Miff on a Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yeah.
Give me the gorilla.
Miff on a Saturday?
And
he
I'll
knows
take Miff
it's
on a
this
Saturday.
He knows it's this Saturday.
Yeah, I'll take Miff on the Saturday.
Give me the gorilla. 100%. You could wake that gorilla up from a nap and I'd take it. If Miff had a couple days to prepare. Anyways, how many chickens do you think it would take to kill you? On my worst day, 1. Because I could just choke on a bone, right? Like,
that's true.
It could only take 1. If it's like me in the gorilla arena, no exit. I mean, here's the thing. God, we're going to get way too into this. Eventually, you're going to lose your footing, right? The blood is going to make the ground really wet. And you're going to slip. You're going to step on a bone. You're going to step on a chicken, whatever it is. I'm going to slip. And as soon as you hit the ground, you are screwed. If we're talking like an infinite amount of chickens and it's just how many you encounter before you die, you can't, they're going to get you as soon as you're on the ground, right? So you have to stay upright. And eventually there would just be too many chickens that I have taken care of to handle, So like, I don't know. I'd guess it's probably not as many as I'd like it to be. But I'm also weak and old. So like a couple hundred, probably.
You think you could take 200?
Kinda, yeah.
You think you could take 200
I'd
chickens?
get worn down, and then I'd step on a slick spot, I'd go down, and then I'm toast.
You think you could destroy 150 chickens and still have energy to do 40 more?
No, you're right. No, probably
I was going to
not.
say like 80.
You think 80 for you or for me?
For me.
Wow. Okay, if you think you can only do 80, it's almost certain that I could only do like 50.
Chickens are like deceptive birds. Like they're not like a goose or anything.
Yeah. Dude, 4 geese, I'm losing. Like,
oh no. I think a one-on-one versus a goose.
Like, yeah.
A goose versus Mifflin. Give me the goose.
Yeah. Because they're mean. They want it more than me. Like,
they do.
They want it more than me.
They're dicks.
For sure. They are total jerks. Yeah, I feel like you're selling yourself short, Bobby, for sure.
Bro, the amount of energy you'd have to put forth to kill the chicken.
It wouldn't be that
Because
much.
it's not like you just have to like punch it and it's done.
Yeah,
Or like kick
no.
it and it's done.
It almost certainly you could punch it and it was done.
No, you'd have to like snap its neck.
Yeah, but they're bird bones. They're so light. They're not dense. Like it's
Okay,
so
maybe
easy.
you could kick it.
Here's the problem. Here's the noob trap, Bobby. If you behead a bunch of them at once, they're still up. You know, like that's what you got to be careful of. You can't be.
Oh yeah, you don't want to do that.
Don't do that. Yeah, I don't know. I think that you could take like Neon's giving you 200.
Maybe I'm.
I think you're in triple
Maybe I'm
digits
underselling
for sure. Oh, It's Time lived on a farm. They say if you kick it, that's taken care of. So that's big.
Okay, I thought it would be like you have to put like a little bit of something behind it.
No, but here's the thing: if you're kicking, that's you could go down early. I'm telling you, if you get 10 and then you slip, you're gone. Like you can, because they're gonna get your eyes, you know. And once your eyes are gone, you're out of the race. Like you have nothing.
I still think 80.
I think I could do about 60. I'm gonna go with 60.
Okay, fine. You can have 80. I'll take 100.
Deal. I'll take 80.
All
you take
right,
100. That's our guess. I don't want to find out though because
No, I'm all right.
You know those like Travis Kelce tweets that were like the old ones like that were popping up a couple like last week, like people digging up his old tweets, and most of the time old athlete tweets are like some weird sexual stuff or like you know a slur, but his are like can't wait to take this nap. Like I love that guy. One of them was, hey Travis, who would win between a bear and a shark? Or do you think you could beat a bear or a shark in a fight? And he just quote tweeted it and replied, I don't hurt animals. Like, I'll say it again. I do not hurt animals. Like such a based response. That is my overall response to this question.
I don't hurt animals.
I don't hurt animals. Yeah. Dude, Travis Kelce's just wouldn't it suck if it turned out that he sucked? I think about that a lot with like people that I like that are like,
There's a few.
You know who I think that about? Mike McDaniels. Wouldn't that suck if Mike McDaniels turned out to be a huge piece?
No.
I don't think
he's
he
like
is.
my favorite coach already.
I know. He's
been in the league for like a year.
He's so funny. He's obviously a sick NFL coach. And he's just like, I want to hang out with that guy. I'd be so sad if it turned out he sucked.
Agreed, 100%.
I don't think he does. For the record.
Surely he doesn't. Because it'd be like the same vein as like Keanu Reeves just being like a closet asshole just somehow.
Yeah, just a total piece. That would really suck. But that also is not happening, of course. Yeah, there have been some. I feel like you have to kind of assume that almost every celebrity is worse than you think they are at their base. Yeah. I do not think that for like Keanu Reeves, Tom Hanks.
Yep, that's a good one.
Mike McDaniels, you know those guys. Or McDaniel, those guys are beasts. I hope, and I don't want to know. I do want to know if they're bad, but I hope they aren't. At the very least, Bobby. Last thing before we go, Justin Jefferson activated off IR this week. Big for the Vikings and big for my fantasy team, maybe.
If Josh Dobbs plays anything like he did yesterday, your season is over.
Yeah. Unfortunate. But hey, at least Matt Canada's on the street. And the Steelers can be an offensive team once again.
I thought they were going to get rid of Tomlin and, you know, promote Canada.
Yeah.
Give him head coaching duties.
Can you imagine what the city would have done if that had happened?
Could you imagine how the Steelers would look with Matt Canada head coach?
We'd look like the Browns, like for the majority of my life, not the Browns who are.
Okay, I was going to say, aren't the Browns
somehow kind of
they have the same record as you?
Bro, they're a poverty franchise. They're never going to win. It doesn't matter. Deshaun Watson, it could be healthy. I wouldn't care. That team cannot win. That's a losing franchise. Like, they only lose. I have no fear that team is going to win a Super Bowl in my lifetime. I honestly don't think it'll happen.
Maybe if they had Chubb.
Nope.
I would disagree.
Watson and Chubb could be perfectly healthy. Their defense is sick. They would have good tools offensively. I would still be absolutely confident they would never win the Super Bowl.
No way.
Yep.
This year,
Yep,
they have like a top 5 defense.
Yeah, they're great.
Deshaun Watson looks like an actual quarterback again.
Sure.
Their running back would average more than like, I think Jerome Ford's averaging like 3.6 or something like that. And
Nick
Kareem
Chubb's
Hunt's
a
averaging
total
like
beast.
3.8.
Yep, they would have no chance. Poverty
They'd
franchise.
make playoffs at least.
Yeah, they'd make the playoffs. Poverty franchise, though. Can't win. There are some teams that just can't win. I think they would have to be so much better than everyone else and then still get lucky. Because I think they're incapable of it. I really do.
I thought you were going to go and hit me with that too. Some teams just poverty franchises. The Vikings. The Browns.
I mean, have you ever felt like the Vikings have a real, like, this is our year?
Yes.
When Favre was
multiple
there?
times, and every time we fail, which is probably worse.
Yeah, that is worse. You should just accept that the Vikings aren't quite to poverty franchise level.
We're just the most middling franchise of all time.
Yeah, you're just mid. But that means you could win. Like, you could win. Like, the Bucks were a middling team. You know, that was a mid franchise for a long time. And then they won.
Like the Wolves, right?
Yeah.
Super middling, right?
Yeah, the Wolves could win. The Wolves could win. Anthony Edwards has single-handedly pulled them out of poverty franchise zone.
I love it.
It only takes one player to take you out of... The Cavaliers are still a poverty franchise. They literally had the best basketball player ever born. Don't Michael Jordan at me. LeBron is better. I'm sorry. They literally had the best basketball player of all time born in their backyard, and they fumbled him, and then he came back to win a championship. They had to get... That's how poverty that franchise was. He had to come back.
And he left again
because
he didn't want to do it again.
Right. That team is cursed forever. Like, that team is never going to win again. I swear they're never going to be good.
Imagine Mahomes was born in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Was drafted to Pittsburgh.
We would win 7 championships in a row.
He wouldn't even leave.
No.
Like, how bad do you have to be to have a player born where you were, get drafted to that team, and also be a fantastic player, not just like some nobody.
Yep.
And all you have to do is just give him some decent pieces, and you win.
Yep.
And they couldn't do that.
Poverty franchise.
He had to hit his prime. He had to like go and like climb a mountain just to learn how to win with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Bro, he literally like 1v9'd a whole playoffs. Like, to win you... It took a literal Herculean effort from the greatest player in your sport ever born for you to win a championship. You are never winning again. Like, they will never win another championship. I could live to be 100. I will never see the Cavaliers win another championship. I'm so sure. There's just something about it, you know? Like, there's something in the air about the maybe it's just... I'm a Cleveland hater, of course. Like, it's just how I have to be being from Pittsburgh. But, man... No chance for the Browns, for the Cavaliers. Poor Cleveland fans are like catching a huge stray on this episode, like for no reason whatsoever. I just talk about how all their franchises are poverty. But sorry, like root for better teams. Like it's a fine. Will a non-Twins team win in Minnesota? Yeah, I think the Timberwolves have a chance to win. They can win this year. On God, that team's good.
Bro, we are so good this year. All we need, okay. Like, knock on wood, Jaden McDaniels needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
Ant cannot do it all alone.
Nope.
He can't do it with Cat. He can't do it with Gobert. If McDaniels is healthy, like if McDaniels was healthy in playoffs last year, okay, I won't say that. But we would take a couple games off of the Nuggets last year.
Can we say objectively still that even though your team is good and they have a chance to win the title, that Gobert trade was still terrible? Like, we can all agree to that, right?
Bro, imagine if we had Jared Vanderbilt instead. All we need is just Jared Vanderbilt for Gobert. Straight up right now, we'd be a better team.
Like, I'm sorry, man. I know what the advanced stats say about Gobert's defense. The eye test just tells me something different, bro. I don't know. Like,
if he drains a 3 this year, I'll change my tune on that.
Means he's got to take a lot of threes, Bobby.
No, did you hear in the offseason he was working on his 3-point game?
Yep.
And so I think he shot like 6 or something threes this year, and he's missed them all.
Yeah, that is not where you want.
You have to work it out a little bit more.
That is not where you want your guy to be. Okay, let's call it there. Go Timberwolves, I guess. But go Nuggets actually, because Meerkat will kill me if I say otherwise. Go Hawks above all other NBA teams. not a poverty franchise. We will win one day. I'm a Trae Young.
Keep telling yourself.
I will. For sure. He's turning it back up. Okay, he's turning on the gas. All right, thanks everyone for watching. Oh my God, we have. Okay, can you do the bye? That's normally Bara's thing. I tried to do it one week. It was bad. I'm gonna say like, Bobby, you know what to do, and then I'm gonna transition out of it, but you're gonna hit like a kind of long like, bye like type of thing.
Bye.
Yeah, that's you're on the right track. So
like what? Like tell me what to do with it.
Well, it was just
pointers.
it was a little flat.
Bye.
No, we don't want you to sing it. It's more like imagine we're driving away and you're like waving on the front stoop.
Bye.
You know? Oh, and think about how much you love bread and playing Scotty with Berserker's shield. Like that'll get you in the right. Yeah, we're getting better there. Okay, yeah, then we're getting better. Okay, yeah, we'll see you probably next week. In order to talk about some SEC teams. Until then, you know what to do. No. Okay. Yeah, you're doing great, Bobby. Go ahead. Yeah. No, just yeah. That's great. Oh my God, Bear's gonna be so upset.
I think he liked it.